The massive alien ship appeared above Kepler 442b without warning. It was unlike anything humans had ever seen before. The vessel looked like it was made from living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. No engines were visible, yet it hung perfectly still in space above the newest human colony. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the orbital station, watching the alien ship through the main viewing screen. She had been in charge of human expansion into this sector for 5 years. In all that time, they had never encountered intelligent alien life. The discovery should have been exciting, but something about the ship filled her with unease. "Ma'am, they're requesting permission to come aboard," reported Lieutenant Martinez from the communications station. "They're speaking perfect English." "How is that possible?" Chen asked. "We've never met these beings before." "Unknown, Admiral. They say they are called the Keth Moran Elders. They claim they have been watching our species for some time." Chen straightened her uniform. First contact with alien intelligence was something every human leader had prepared for. But she never expected it to happen in such a remote location. "Tell them they may send a small delegation." Full diplomatic protocols. An hour later, 3 alien beings materialized in the station's main conference room. They were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as their ship. Their faces were ancient, marked with lines that spoke of countless years. When they moved, they seemed to glide rather than walk. "Greetings, humans of Earth," said the tallest of the 3 aliens. His voice was calm and carried the weight of great age. "I am Elder Vorthak. These are my companions, Elder Nyx Era and Elder Zelmoth. We have traveled far to bring you a warning." Chen had expected many things from first contact, but not this. "A warning? About what?" Elder Vorthak's large, dark eyes seemed to look right through her. "We have watched your species spread across the stars with great speed. Your expansion is impressive, but it has placed you in terrible danger. You have built your colonies directly in the path of the Nexus storms." "Nexus storms?" Chen had never heard the term before. "What are those?" Elder Nyxera stepped forward. Her voice was softer than Vorthak's, but equally serious. "They are phenomena that sweep across the galaxy every few thousand years. They are not weather, as you understand it. The storms tear apart the very fabric of reality itself. They consume entire star systems, leaving behind only twisted space where the laws of physics no longer work." Chen felt a chill run down her spine, but she maintained her composure. "How do you know about these storms?" "Because we have lived through them," Elder Zelmoth replied. "Our species is old, Admiral Chen. We have seen 17 storm cycles. Each time, we watch younger civilizations discover the galaxy, expand rapidly, and then face the storms unprepared. Most do not survive." Elder Vorthak activated a device that projected a 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy above the conference table. Red zones showed the predicted path of the approaching storms. Chen's heart sank as she saw that every human colony in the outer spiral lay directly in those red areas. "The next storm cycle begins in approximately 4 Earth years," Vorthak explained. "Your colonies here, and here will be completely destroyed." His long finger pointed to dots representing billions of human lives. "That's impossible," Chen said, though she could hear the doubt in her own voice. "Our scientists have detected no such phenomena. Our deep space sensors would have seen something this large coming." Elder Nyxara's expression was sad. "The storms exist in dimensions your science has not yet discovered. They cannot be detected until they are very close. By then, it is too late to escape. But there is hope," Elder Zelmoth added quickly. He manipulated the projection, highlighting several areas in green. "These are the safe harbors, regions of space that the storms cannot penetrate. If you move your people there now, they will survive the coming cycle." Chen studied the map carefully. The safe harbors were far from human space, in regions they had not yet explored. Moving the entire outer colonies would be the largest evacuation in human history. It would mean abandoning years of work and trillions of dollars in infrastructure. "Why should we trust you?" Chen asked. "We've never met your species before. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick to make us abandon our colonies? The three elders exchanged glances. Elder Vorthok sighed deeply. We have no interest in your colonies, Admiral. We are offering you the knowledge that has kept our people alive for millions of years. We do this because we have seen too many promising species destroyed by these storms. Show us proof, Chen demanded. Show us evidence of these storms. Elder Nixera activated another device. The conference room filled with images of devastation. Twisted metal that had once been space stations. Planets where the surface bent and flowed like liquid. Solar systems where multiple stars occupied the same space. Defying all known laws of physics. This was the Valdric Empire, she explained. They controlled 200 star systems. They refused to believe our warnings. This was the hegemony of Kos. They tried to fight the storms with their most advanced weapons. This was the Crystal Alliance. They thought they could hide in underground bunkers. Each image showed the same result. Total destruction. Chen felt sick. But she forced herself to stay strong. Even if these storms are real, humanity doesn't run from danger. We face it. We find solutions. We've overcome every challenge we've ever faced. Elder Vorthak's expression grew even sadder. That is what they all said, Admiral Chen. That is what they all believed. And that is why they are all dead. The meeting continued for hours. The elders shared more evidence, more warnings, more pleas for humanity to abandon the outer colonies. They offered detailed star charts, showing safe routes to the harbor zones. They promised to help with the evacuation. But Chen had already made up her mind. She thought about human history, about every time her species had been told something was impossible. Humans had conquered disease, poverty, war, and even death itself in some cases. They had mastered faster than light travel when experts said it was impossible. They had terraformed dead worlds and built cities in the void of space. Thank you for your warning, Chen said finally. But humanity will not abandon our colonies. We'll study these storms of yours. We'll find a way to stop them or survive them. That's what humans do. The elders left peacefully, but their final words haunted Chen for days afterward. We will return in 1 year, Elder Vorthak had said. Perhaps by then you will understand the true scope of what you face. We hope you prove us wrong, but we have never been wrong before. As their crystal ship disappeared into the dark between stars, Chen began planning humanity's response to the coming storms. Dr. Marcus Webb stared at the data flowing across his screens in the Deep Space Research Station orbiting Proxima Centauri. 3 months had passed since Admiral Chen's report about the alien warning, and Webb had been working around the clock to find any trace of the so-called Nexus storms. Webb was the head of humanity's most advanced physics research team. He had spent his career pushing the boundaries of what was possible. He had helped design the faster-than-light engines that carried humans to the stars. He had created the quantum computers that managed terraforming operations across dozens of worlds. If anyone could find evidence of these mysterious storms, it would be him. Doctor, we're getting some interesting readings from the deep space sensors, called out Dr. Lisa Park, his chief assistant. There's definitely something strange happening in the outer regions. Oh, Webb hurried over to her workstation. The sensor data showed ripples in space-time itself, like waves moving through the fabric of reality. The patterns were unlike anything in their databases, but they were definitely there. How far out? Webb asked. The leading edge appears to be about 3.5 years away, Park replied. But the patterns suggest something much larger behind it. Something that could span multiple star systems. Webb felt a mixture of excitement and concern. The aliens had been telling the truth about something approaching, but that didn't mean their warnings about destruction were correct. This was simply a new phenomenon that humanity hadn't encountered before. Every new discovery brought new opportunities. Get me a direct link to Admiral Chen, Webb ordered. And start gathering data from every deep space sensor we have. I want to know everything about these storms before they arrive. Within hours, Webb found himself in a secure video conference with Admiral Chen and the leaders of the Terran Colonial Authority. The faces on the screen showed worry, but Webb was confident he could ease their fears. The good news is that we can confirm something is approaching, Webb began. The bad news is that the aliens were right about the timeline. We have roughly 3.5 years before the leading edge reaches our outer colonies. What exactly are we dealing with, Doctor? Asked President Martinez, the head of the colonial government. Webb pulled up his preliminary analysis. Based on our sensor data, these nexus storms appear to be massive distortions in space-time itself. Think of them as cosmic tsunamis, but instead of water, they're made of warped reality. The energy readings are enormous, but that also means enormous potential. Potential for what? Admiral Chen asked. For advancement beyond our wildest dreams, Webb said, his excitement growing. If we can study these storms up close, if we can understand how they work, we might be able to harness that energy. We're talking about power sources that could fuel our civilization for millions of years. President Martinez looked skeptical. The aliens seemed pretty convinced that these storms would destroy us all. Webb waved his hand dismissively. The aliens are old, sir. They've become cautious with age. They probably never tried to actually study the phenomena. They just ran away every time. But humans don't run away from challenges. We face them head-on. Over the following weeks, Webb's team made remarkable progress. Using experimental quantum probes, they managed to capture tiny fragments of the storm's energy from the very edge of its influence. The samples defied conventional physics, existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Sir, you need to see this, Dr. Park called out during one late-night research session. She had been running tests on the storm fragments in a specially constructed containment field. The energy isn't just powerful, it's controllable. Webb rushed to her station and watched in amazement as she manipulated the storm fragment using magnetic fields. The piece of twisted reality responded to their instruments, bending and shaping according to their commands. This changes everything, Webb whispered. If we can control fragments this small, imagine what we could do with larger samples. Within days, Webb was presenting his findings to the highest levels of human government. The conference room in the capital city of New Geneva was packed with military leaders, politicians, and scientists. Webb's presentation lasted 3 hours, covering every aspect of his research. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand on the brink of the greatest scientific breakthrough in human history, Webb concluded. These nexus storms aren't disasters waiting to happen. They're opportunities disguised as threats. Admiral Chen leaned forward in her chair. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? Webb activated a holographic display showing his grand design. I call it Project Defiance. We build massive research stations throughout the outer colonies. Each station will be equipped with reality anchors, quantum stabilizers, and energy collection arrays. When the storms arrive, instead of being destroyed, we'll be ready to study them and harvest their power. The room erupted in excited murmurs. The potential benefits were staggering. Unlimited energy, new technologies, possible mastery over space-time itself. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. What about the risks? Asked General Torres, head of colonial defense. The aliens seemed convinced these storms destroy everything they touch. Webb had prepared for this question. The aliens never tried to fight back, General. They never tried to understand the storms or defend against them. They just ran away and hid. That's not the human way. We've never met a challenge we couldn't overcome through science and determination. President Martinez stood up slowly. Dr. Webb, if you're wrong about this, we could lose billions of lives. If I'm right, sir, we could gain control over the fundamental forces of the universe itself, Webb replied confidently. Humanity has always chosen progress over safety. It's how we got this far. Webb replied confidently. The vote was unanimous. Project Defiance was approved with unlimited funding and the highest priority classification. Construction began immediately on 12 massive research stations positioned throughout the outer colonies. Each station was the size of a small city, equipped with the most advanced technology humanity could produce. 6 months into construction, the Keth Moran elders returned as promised. This time, they brought more ships and spoke with even greater urgency. Elder Vorthok requested another meeting with Admiral Chen. But this time, Webb insisted on being present. "We have detected your construction activities," Elder Vorthok said sadly. "You are building installations designed to interact with the storms. This is a terrible mistake. With respect, Elder Vorthok, we've made remarkable progress in understanding these phenomena," Webb replied. "We've successfully contained and manipulated storm fragments. We believe we can survive and even benefit from the storm's arrival." Elder Nixera stepped forward, her crystal face showing something that might have been fear. "Dr. Webb, we have seen 17 civilizations attempt exactly what you are planning. The Valdric Empire built reality anchors. The hegemony of Kos created quantum stabilizers. The Crystal Alliance designed energy collectors. All of them believed their technology would protect them. And what happened to them?" Webb asked, though he was sure he already knew the answer. "They made the storms worse," Elder Zelmoth replied quietly. "Their technology created feedback loops that amplified the storm's destructive power. Instead of protecting their people, their defenses turned their worlds into permanent scars in reality itself." Webb felt a moment of doubt, but he pushed it aside. Those other civilizations hadn't possessed human ingenuity and determination. They hadn't had the benefit of humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. "Thank you for the warning," Webb said politely. "But humanity will succeed where others failed. It's what we do." The elders left without another word, but their final message haunted the research teams for weeks. "We will return one more time before the storms arrive," Elder Vorthak had said. "We hope to find you have reconsidered. If not, we will do what we can to help the survivors." Construction on Project Defiance continued at full speed. The massive stations took shape in the darkness between stars, bristling with weapons designed to fight reality itself. Humanity's greatest minds worked day and night to perfect their defenses against cosmic forces they barely understood. Webb stood in the command center of the first completed station, watching technicians run final tests on the reality anchors. In 18 months, the storms would arrive. In 18 months, humanity would prove that no force in the universe could stand against human will and ingenuity. He had no idea how wrong he was. Captain Elena Vasquez was running a routine patrol near the outer edge of human space when her ship's sensors started screaming warnings. She had been monitoring the approach of the Nexus storms for months. But according to all human calculations, they were still 18 months away from reaching the outer colonies. The sensor readings made no sense. Reality itself seemed to be tearing apart just beyond the edge of her ship's detection range. Space was folding in on itself, creating patterns that hurt to look at. Her quantum computers couldn't even process what they were seeing. "Captain, we're receiving emergency signals from Research Station Alpha 7, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Torres. "They're reporting massive space-time distortions approaching their position." Vasquez felt her blood run cold. Alpha 7 was one of Dr. Webb's Project Defiance stations, positioned at the very edge of human territory. If the storms were reaching it already, then humanity's timeline was catastrophically wrong. "Get me a direct line to Dr. Webb," she ordered. "And prepare for emergency jump to Alpha 7's position." "Ma'am, the space-time distortions might make faster-than-light travel dangerous," warned her navigation officer. "Noted. Do it anyway." The jump to Alpha 7 took only minutes, but what Vasquez saw when they arrived would haunt her for the rest of her life. The massive research station was still there, but it existed in multiple places at once. She could see 3 different versions of it occupying the same space, like ghostly overlays that flickered in and out of existence. "This is Captain Vasquez to Alpha 7. Please respond." The reply came through heavy static, and the voice sounded strange, like it was speaking from underwater. "Captain, this is Dr. Webb. The storms came early. Our calculations were wrong. Everything is wrong." Through the main viewing screen, Vasquez watched in horror as the Nexus storms struck the research station. The reality anchors that were supposed to protect the facility activated automatically, creating a brilliant blue glow around the station. For a moment, it looked like the technology might work. Then everything went wrong at once. The reality anchors created a feedback loop with the approaching storm energy. Instead of stabilizing local space-time, they began amplifying the distortions. The station started stretching and compressing like it was made of rubber, Parts of it aged thousands of years in seconds while other sections became brand new. The quantum stabilizers are making it worse. Webb's voice screamed over the radio. The energy collectors are overloading. We're losing containment on all levels. Overloading. 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 Vasquez watched helplessly as the research station tore itself apart from the inside. The very technology designed to protect it was destroying it more thoroughly than the storms alone ever could have. Explosions of twisted energy spread outward from the station, creating ripples in space-time that made her own ship shake violently. "All hands, emergency jump," Vasquez ordered. "Get us out of here now." But it was too late. The space-time distortions had spread too far. Her ship's faster-than-light engines couldn't find a stable point to lock onto. They were trapped in a region where the laws of physics no longer worked properly. "Captain, we're receiving signals from the colony ships in this sector," Torres reported. "They're all reporting the same thing. The storms hit every outer colony simultaneously." Vasquez felt sick. Simultaneously meant the storms weren't moving through space like a normal phenomenon. They were appearing everywhere at once, across a vast area. Her ship's sensors showed the scope of the disaster expanding by the minute. "How many people were in the outer colonies?" she asked quietly. "Approximately 4 billion, ma'am," replied her chief officer. 4 billion human beings, caught in a cosmic disaster that their own technology had made worse. Vasquez had to force herself to focus on what she could control. Her ship was designed for deep space exploration and could support a crew of 50 for months without resupply. Right now, her priority was rescuing as many survivors as possible. Over the following weeks, Vasquez's ship became a floating refugee center. Her crew worked around the clock to pull survivors from damaged colonies and research stations. Each rescue mission was dangerous, requiring them to navigate through regions where reality itself had become unstable. The stories the survivors told were all the same. The Project Defiance technology had not only failed to protect the colonies, but had made the destruction far worse. The reality anchors had created permanent tears in space-time. The quantum stabilizers had turned simple storms into chaotic maelstroms that lasted for days. The energy collectors had exploded with the force of small stars. Dr. Webb was among the survivors Vasquez rescued, pulled from an escape pod near the wreckage of Alpha 7. The brilliant scientist was a broken man, muttering constantly about equations that no longer worked and physical laws that had stopped making sense. "I was so sure," he kept repeating. "We had run every simulation. Every test showed our technology would work. How could we have been so wrong?" Vasquez didn't have an answer for him. She was too busy trying to understand what they were now facing. The storm-affected regions weren't just damaged. They were changed at a fundamental level. Her science officer, Dr. Sarah Kim, had been studying the altered areas for weeks. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Kim called from her workstation. She had been analyzing sensor data from the affected colonies. The storms didn't just destroy these areas. They rewrote the basic rules of physics. Vasquez studied the data Dr. Kim was showing her. In the storm zones, gravity sometimes flowed upward. Time moved in loops, causing events to repeat endlessly. Matter would spontaneously transform into energy, then back into completely different types of matter. Some areas had temperatures of absolute zero, and the heat of a star's core existing side by side. "Are you saying these regions are permanently uninhabitable?" Vasquez asked. "Worse than that, ma'am. They're permanently impossible. The laws of physics that normally govern reality simply don't exist there anymore. Anyone who enters those zones would be torn apart at the atomic level within seconds." The full scope of the disaster was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't just lost billions of people and dozens of colonies. They had lost entire regions of space that could never be reclaimed. The storm-affected areas were like cosmic wounds that would never heal. "Dr. Kim, how far are the storms spreading?" "That's the worst part, Captain. The distortions our technology created are still expanding. At current rates, they'll reach the core human worlds within 5 years, and there's no sign they're slowing down." Vasquez felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her ship carried nearly 300 survivors, all that remained of the outer colonies. Somewhere in the safe regions of space, the core human worlds were probably receiving reports of the disaster. They would be preparing defenses, mobilizing fleets, doing everything they could to protect themselves. But Vasquez knew the truth that those distant leaders didn't yet understand. There was no defending against this disaster. Humanity's own arrogance had turned a natural phenomenon into an unstoppable force of destruction. The feedback loops created by Project Defiance had made the storms stronger and given them the power to tear apart reality itself. "Set course for the nearest safe harbor coordinates," she ordered. "The ones the aliens gave us." "Ma'am?" Her navigation officer looked confused. "Those coordinates are hundreds of light years away from human space." "Then we better get started," Vasquez replied grimly. "Because human space doesn't exist anymore." As her ship jumped toward the alien safe harbors, Vasquez took one last look at the region that had once been humanity's proud outer colonies. Where thriving worlds and research stations had once existed, there was now only a growing cancer of twisted space-time that continued to spread toward the heart of human civilization. The elders had been right. Humanity should have listened. But now it was too late for anyone, except the few survivors who had escaped the initial disaster. The question now was whether the rest of humanity would learn from this catastrophe, or whether their pride would doom them to complete extinction. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the emergency command center on Luna, watching reports flood in from across human space. 3 months had passed since the first Nexus storm struck the outer colonies, and the news kept getting worse. The expanding distortion zones had now consumed nearly 2/3 of human territory. Earth itself was safe for now, protected by its position in an inner spiral arm, but that safety wouldn't last long. Dr. Kim's calculations showed the storm-induced distortions spreading toward the core worlds at an increasing rate. Humanity had perhaps 2 years before the expanding chaos reached Earth's solar system. "Status report," Chen ordered, as her staff gathered around the central holographic display. "Confirmed loss of 67 colonies," reported General Torres. "Total casualty estimates are approaching 6 billion. We have approximately 2 million survivors in various refugee ships and emergency shelters. But most are running low on supplies." Chen closed her eyes for a moment. 6 billion people. It was the largest loss of human life in history, dwarfing every war, plague, and disaster their species had ever faced. And it was entirely their own fault. "What about the core worlds? Are they prepared for evacuation?" "Some are, ma'am. But many planetary governments are refusing to abandon their worlds. They're demanding we find a way to stop the expanding distortions instead." Chen almost laughed at the bitter irony. Even facing complete annihilation, human leaders were still demanding impossible solutions rather than accepting hard truths. It was the same stubborn pride that had led them to ignore the elders' warnings in the first place. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Captain Vasquez's refugee fleet," announced the communications officer. "She's requesting permission to enter the Keth-Moran safe harbor coordinates." Chen had been dreading this moment. Accepting alien charity felt like admitting total defeat. But the alternative was watching the remaining survivors die slowly in the void of space. "Grant permission. And send them our full blessing." The communication channel opened, revealing Captain Vasquez's tired face. Behind her, Chen could see the cramped conditions aboard her ship, packed with survivors who had lost everything. "Admiral, we've reached the safe harbor coordinates the elders provided," Vasquez reported. "The region appears to be completely stable. No signs of storm activity or space-time distortions. We're preparing to establish temporary colonies on several uninhabited worlds in this area." "Any sign of the elders themselves?" Chen asked. "Negative, ma'am. But they left detailed instructions and supply caches on multiple worlds. It's like they prepared this entire region specifically for human refugees." Chen felt a mixture of gratitude and shame. The Keth-Moran elders had not only warned humanity about the storms, they had prepared safe havens for the survivors. Even after being rejected and ignored, they had continued working to save human lives. "Captain, I need you to document everything you can about the storm effects. We need to understand what went wrong and why our technology made things worse." "Already on it, ma'am." Dr. Kim has been working with the other survivors to analyze the data. We're learning things about the storms that we never expected. Over the following weeks, Chen received regular reports from the refugee fleets as they settled into the safe harbor regions. Dr. Kim's research team, working with limited resources but unlimited determination, had made several disturbing discoveries about the true nature of the Nexus storms. The storms weren't random cosmic phenomena as humanity had assumed. They were precise, almost surgical in their effects. The storms only affected regions where advanced technology tried to manipulate spacetime itself. Natural planets and primitive civilizations were left completely untouched. It's like the universe has an immune system, Dr. Kim explained during one of her reports to Earth. The storms appear to be a response to civilizations that push too hard against the fundamental laws of reality. Our Project Defiance technology triggered a massive immune response that's still growing. Chen found this information both fascinating and terrifying. If Dr. Kim was right, then the Nexus storms weren't a disaster to be survived. They were a punishment for species that grew too ambitious, too proud, too certain that they could master forces beyond their understanding. 6 months after the initial disaster, the Kethmoran elders arrived at Earth. Their crystal ships appeared above every major human world simultaneously, broadcasting the same message in perfect English. We come to offer evacuation to any humans who wish to survive. The spreading distortions cannot be stopped, but we can save your people if you will accept our help. Chen met with Elder Vorthak aboard his ship, the same being who had warned her years earlier about the approaching storms. The alien's ancient face showed no anger or satisfaction at having been proven right, only deep sadness. "We are sorry for your loss," Vorthak said simply. "We have seen this tragedy play out many times before, but it never becomes easier to witness. Why are you helping us?" Chen asked. "We rejected your warnings. Our arrogance caused this disaster. Why do you still care what happens to humanity?" Elder Vorthak was quiet for a long moment before responding. "Because despite your mistakes, your species possesses something remarkable. Even in defeat, even facing extinction, your survivors continue to study and learn. Captain Vasquez's people have made more progress understanding the storms in 6 months than we have in 6 million years." Chen looked at the data tablet the elder handed her. It contained research reports from the refugee settlements, compiled by scientists who had lost everything but refused to stop working. Despite having no laboratories, no advanced equipment, and barely enough resources to survive, they were still pushing the boundaries of knowledge. "Our people have always been stubborn," Chen said with a weak smile. "It's our greatest weakness, and our greatest strength. Indeed. That is why we believe your species may play a crucial role in what is coming." "What do you mean?" Elder Vorthak activated a holographic display, showing the expanding storm distortions throughout human space. "The damage your technology caused has created something unprecedented. These storms are not following the normal patterns we have observed. They are growing stronger and more aggressive. If they continue expanding at this rate, they will eventually consume the entire galaxy." Chen felt her heart stop. "You're saying we didn't just doom humanity, we doomed everyone. Perhaps, or perhaps your people will find a solution that has eluded us for millions of years. Your scientists believe the storms can be studied and understood. Our experience tells us this is impossible. But then, our experience also told us that no species would be foolish enough to try what you attempted with Project Defiance." Over the following months, the mass evacuation of humanity began. Entire planetary populations were loaded onto elder ships and transported to the safe harbor regions. The process was slow and painful, requiring humans to abandon not just their homes but their pride. Many refused to leave. Billions of humans chose to stay on their worlds, determined to find technological solutions to the approaching storms. They built new reality anchors, better quantum stabilizers, more advanced energy collectors. Each attempt only made the expanding distortions stronger. Chen was among the last to evacuate Earth, overseeing the departure of humanity's government and military leadership. As her shuttle lifted off from Luna for the final time, she looked back at the blue world where humanity had first learned to dream of the stars. In the refugee settlements, now home to nearly 50 million human survivors. A new culture was emerging. The survivors had been humbled by their defeat, but they had not been broken. Led by Dr. Kim and Captain Vasquez, they were building research facilities and schools, determined to understand their mistake and learn from it. Elder Nixara visited the settlements regularly, sharing ancient knowledge and wisdom with the human researchers. She was amazed by their resilience and their refusal to give up hope. "Your people are remarkable," she told Dr. Kim during one of their meetings. "Most species that survive a storm cycle become cautious and fearful. They spend thousands of years hiding in safe harbors, afraid to explore or innovate. But your people are already planning expeditions back into the storm zones." Dr. Kim nodded. "We need to understand what we created. The distortions are still expanding, and according to our calculations, they'll reach your homeworlds eventually. If we're going to stop this, we need to study the storms up close." "That is madness. The storm zones are death to any living being." "Maybe. But we thought faster than light travel was madness too, until we figured it out. We thought terraforming dead worlds was madness, until we made it routine. Humanity has a long history of doing impossible things." Elder Nixara studied the determined human scientist for a long moment. Despite losing everything, despite facing the complete destruction of her civilization, this human was still planning to charge directly into danger in pursuit of knowledge and solutions. "Perhaps," Nixara said quietly, "that is exactly what the galaxy needs right now." The refugee settlements continued to grow and evolve, becoming permanent colonies rather than temporary shelters. Humanity had been reduced to a fraction of its former size, scattered across alien safe harbors far from their original homes. But they were still human, they were still dreaming of the impossible, and they were still refusing to accept defeat, even when defeat seemed absolute and final. 5 years had passed since the disaster that destroyed human civilization, and Dr. Sarah Kim stood in her new laboratory on Haven 3, watching the latest test results with growing excitement. The refugee colony had evolved far beyond a simple shelter. It now housed nearly 100,000 humans, and had become the center of the most ambitious scientific project in galactic history. "The adaptive matter is stable," reported her assistant, Dr. James Chen, the son of the late Admiral Chen. "It maintains structural integrity, even when exposed to Class 7 reality distortions. The material actually seems to strengthen when local physics become unstable." Dr. Kim smiled as she watched the test sample through the containment field. The strange gray substance looked ordinary, but it represented years of collaboration between human ingenuity and elder knowledge. Unlike normal matter, it could exist comfortably in regions where the laws of physics changed constantly. "Have you told Captain Vasquez about the results?" Kim asked. "She's on her way down now, along with Elder Vorthak. They want to discuss the next phase of the Phoenix Protocol." Kim felt a familiar mixture of excitement and fear at the mention of the Phoenix Protocol. It was humanity's most ambitious plan yet, and potentially their most dangerous. The project aimed to establish permanent research stations inside the storm-affected regions, using adaptive matter technology to create facilities that could survive in areas where reality itself was unstable. Captain Vasquez arrived with Elder Vorthak a few minutes later. The human officer had aged considerably over the past 5 years, bearing the weight of leading the largest group of human survivors. Elder Vorthak looked the same as always, his crystal features showing the same ancient wisdom and concern they had displayed since first contact. "Dr. Kim, I understand you've achieved a breakthrough with the adaptive matter," Vasquez said without preamble. She had lost much of her patience for small talk since becoming the de facto leader of refugee humanity. "Yes, ma'am. We're ready to begin construction of the first Phoenix station. The materials will allow us to build a fully functional research facility that can operate inside the storm zones indefinitely." Elder Vorthak's large eyes showed deep worry. "Dr. Kim, I must once again urge caution. No species in recorded history has ever attempted to establish permanent settlements inside storm-affected regions. The risks are beyond calculation. With respect, Elder Vorthak, no species in recorded history has ever had humanity's particular combination of stubbornness and scientific curiosity, Vasquez replied. Our people need this project. We need to understand what we created and find a way to stop it. Kim activated the holographic display showing the current state of the expanding storm zones. The distortions now covered nearly half the galaxy, spreading outward at an accelerating rate. At the current pace, they would reach even the elder safe harbors within 50 years. The situation is getting worse, Kim explained. Our calculations show that the feedback loops we created with Project Defiance aren't just expanding. They're growing stronger and more aggressive. If we don't find a way to stop or control them, they'll eventually consume the entire galaxy. And you believe placing research stations inside the storm zones will provide answers? Elder Vorthak asked. It's our best chance. We need to study the storms from the inside, to understand the exact mechanisms that drive them. We've learned more about space-time physics in the past 5 years than humanity knew in our entire previous history. But we need direct observation data. Vasquez pulled up another display, showing the proposed locations for the first Phoenix stations. We're starting small. 3 stations, positioned at different types of distortion zones. Each will be crewed by volunteers who understand they may never return home. Elder Vorthak studied the plans with obvious dismay. Captain Vasquez, even if your adaptive matter technology works perfectly, the psychological stress of living in regions where reality changes constantly will destroy the minds of your researchers within weeks. Maybe, Vasquez admitted. But they're willing to try. We have over 300 volunteers for the first missions. Scientists, engineers, even former military personnel. They all understand the risks, but they also understand what's at stake. Kim felt a surge of pride in her species. Humanity had been reduced to a tiny fraction of its former size, scattered across alien safe harbors, dependent on the charity of beings they had once dismissed. Yet when faced with an impossible challenge that threatened the entire galaxy, hundreds of humans were volunteering to venture into cosmic hell itself in search of answers. The first Phoenix station will launch in 3 months, Vasquez announced. Dr. Kim, I want you to lead the research team. Kim had expected this assignment, but hearing it said aloud still sent chills down her spine. She would be among the first humans to venture back into the storm zone since the disaster 5 years ago. The adaptive matter technology might keep her alive, but there was no guarantee it would keep her sane. I accept the assignment, she said simply. 3 months later, Dr. Kim stood on the bridge of the transport ship Resilience, watching through the viewing screen as they approached the edge of the storm zone. The boundary was clearly visible as a shimmering wall, where normal space gave way to the twisted reality of the affected region. All systems check out, reported the ship's captain. The adaptive matter hull is responding normally to the space-time distortions. We're maintaining structural integrity. As they crossed the boundary, Kim felt the universe change around them. The stars outside suddenly existed in multiple positions simultaneously. The ship's chronometer began displaying impossible times, showing past, present, and future readings at once. Gravity seemed to flow in random directions, making everyone feel disoriented and nauseous. But the adaptive matter held. The ship remained solid and functional even as reality bent and twisted around them. Kim's instruments continued to work, collecting data about the storm environment that no one had ever been able to gather before. Dr. Kim, you need to see this, called out her chief researcher. Dr. Martinez. The storm patterns aren't random. There's definitely an underlying structure to the distortions. Kim hurried to his workstation and studied the data flowing across his screens. Martinez was right. Despite the apparent chaos, the reality distortions followed specific patterns. The storms weren't just tearing apart space-time randomly. They were reshaping it according to some kind of blueprint. It's like they're trying to build something, Kim whispered, or prevent something from being built. Over the following weeks, as the Phoenix station established itself in the heart of the storm zone, Kim's team made discovery after discovery. The Nexus storms weren't natural phenomena at all. They were artificial constructs, created by some intelligence for a specific purpose. The storms were designed to prevent advanced civilizations from developing certain types of technology. Specifically, technology that could manipulate space-time on a large scale. Every time a species reached the level where they could potentially threaten the fabric of reality itself, the storms appeared to destroy their capability. It's a cosmic immune system, Kim explained during her weekly report to the refugee colonies. But it's not automatic. Someone or something is controlling it, deciding when civilizations have become too dangerous. The implications were staggering. For millions of years, the galaxy had been under the control of some unknown intelligence that prevented species from advancing beyond a certain technological threshold. The Kethmaran elders had survived, not because they were wise, but because they had been allowed to survive. They had never pushed hard enough against the boundaries to trigger a response, but humanity had pushed too hard, too fast. Their Project Defiance technology had crossed some invisible line, and the cosmic immune system had responded with overwhelming force. Worse, their technology had damaged the control mechanisms, causing the storms to spread beyond their intended targets. We're not just dealing with a natural disaster, Kim realized. We're dealing with a broken security system that's trying to sterilize the entire galaxy. But Kim's team had also made another discovery, one that filled her with both hope and terror. Deep within the storm zones, their sensors had detected something else. Massive structures, hidden behind layers of twisted space-time. The storms weren't just destroying advanced civilizations, they were protecting something. Captain Vasquez, I need to make a recommendation, Kim said during her final report from the Phoenix station. We need to expand the program, build more stations, send more research teams. Whatever intelligence created these storms, whatever they're protecting, we need to find it. Is that wise, Dr. Kim? If this intelligence is powerful enough to control the entire galaxy, what makes you think humanity can challenge it? Kim smiled grimly. Because we already have. Our stubborn refusal to accept the boundaries led us to discover the truth. Now we need to decide what to do with that knowledge. Back in the safe harbor colonies, Elder Vorthok listened to Kim's reports with a mixture of awe and terror. In 5 years, humanity had accomplished what his species hadn't achieved in millions of years of careful study. They had not only survived inside the storm zones, but had uncovered the greatest secret in galactic history. Your people are remarkable, he told Captain Vasquez. They have discovered that we are all prisoners in our own galaxy, controlled by forces we never even knew existed. The question is, what do you intend to do with this knowledge? Vasquez looked out at the refugee colonies where humans were building new lives among the stars. Despite losing everything, despite being reduced to a tiny fraction of their former numbers, they were still human. They were still pushing boundaries, still refusing to accept limitations, still dreaming of the impossible. We're going to do what humans always do when we encounter an impossible challenge, she said. We're going to find a way through it. The storms were meant to keep civilizations from advancing too far, but they made a mistake when they tried to stop us. They made us angry, and an angry human is the most dangerous force in the universe. Deep within the storm zones, the Phoenix research stations continued their work, slowly mapping the hidden structures and gathering intelligence about the cosmic powers that had controlled the galaxy for eons. Humanity had been warned to stay away, had suffered terrible consequences for their defiance, but they had not been stopped. The galaxy's hidden masters were about to learn why the elders had called humanity remarkable. The storms had been designed to prevent species from becoming too powerful, but they had failed to account for the one trait that made humans truly unique: the absolute refusal to give up, no matter how impossible the odds. The next phase of human evolution was about to begin, and this time, they knew what they were fighting against.